My guests are seated in the studio. Abdul Malik Wekubaka Jr., a regular panelist who's been faithful to this show for the whole of the year. We owe a lot of gratitude to him. Good morning and welcome to the show, Abdul Malik.
Good morning, my brother.
Great. And also Godwin Adawine. He is a lecturer in law and he has been on this show a good number of times giving you the perspective that is not colored as far as you want to enjoy. Pure law. He does most of the times for your enjoyment. Good morning and welcome to the show, Godwin.
Thank you.
Right. Ni Ama Akomfra. He's the communications director of the CPP. They say the future of Ghana should rest with the CPP because the NPP and the NDC have both failed and are failing. We'll be talking about fuel prices and why they should not be going down. And you'll hear very interesting views that he's already been sharing backstage. He says the CPP will do better, so consider them. Good morning and welcome to the show. Good morning.
Always a pleasure.
Great. All right, so your views and your comments are welcome to the show. 1422 is a text line. You can also post them on our Facebook wall and we'll share with the rest of the world. We are live from the Multi-TV studios. This is your Joy News channel. We are also live from Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra. We are on Love 99.5 in Kumasi and over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. All over the world, you can listen to us on TuneIn Radio. If you don't have that app, just Google it up and download and begin to listen. TuneIn Radio. Look for Joy or look for Love FM and you can listen to this show. Alternatively, we are live on Multi-TV World /streams or myjoyonline.com. Well, before we start the discussion, discussing the issues that we have, and of course, the NDC being one of the biggest issues that we are looking at this morning, there's something to be said about what has happened as far as the HIV and AIDS ambassador Gijo matters are concerned, and what the AIDS Commission, whether it did due diligence before they recruited her to be the ambassador or not, and all of that. You've heard that this woman who had been engaged by the AIDS Commission and she traveled the length and breadth of this country with the group. They went around. She's been sponsored abroad on a number of platforms to speak and to seek to stop stigmatization. Now she comes up to say she's not HIV positive, she is negative, and that the AIDS Commission did not actually verify her status before they engaged her. The prerequisite for joining that campaign is that you must be HIV positive.
Well, something. Good morning to you. Good morning to my fellow panelists. Good morning to our cherished viewers and listeners. And let me wish everybody a Merry Christmas in advance. I think many Ghanaians are perplexed by this whole issue of why somebody who supposedly was HIV positive is now coming out to say, I'm not. First of all, I think AIDS is a very serious issue, and we hope that wherever we are now, her role in the last few years hopefully has been positive, and they've been able to achieve a lot of things. They've been able to minimize stigmatization, and they've been able to take the issue forward, and many people, perhaps many lives have been saved. So I think we need to applaud the Commission for whatever effort they put in the last 3 years. But where we are now, why would somebody, presumably she volunteered her services, or is it that they searched for her and picked her and decided that, yes, you're HIV positive and you are the role model? Or, I think we need a few more background information about how she came to be an ambassador, and where we are now, why she perhaps is seeking to now set the record straight. What purpose will it serve? Even if you're not, and you've been made a role model, should you not perhaps continue in the service of the country to render the service that you've been rendering? I think all of us were perplexed by why we are where we are, and I hope that she herself should explain to us and the whole nation why she's seeking to Now, why go along for 3 years, admitting that you are positive, and now say you're not positive? I think it beggars belief, really, where we are on this issue. But I hope that much good work has been done, and we will applaud the Commission for the work that they continue to do.
Could some say the Commission ought to take the full blame for this, because they ought to have verified her status first?
Well, I have to confess that I'm not too educated on the procedures, whether it is the Commission itself that is enjoined to undertake that exercise of checking your status, and whether they have the capacity to ensure that that is done, or whether there are some auxiliary, agencies that work with the Commission to verify that. Of course, I'm aware that when the person comes, says I'm HIV and things, with her consent, that you can go through those examinations and things. So I am not very, very educated on how that procedure is determined and which agencies, whether it is exclusively the Commission or the other allied agencies. But whatever it is, it's a very important issue that ought to be done, especially with the benefit of hindsight now. We are seeing how critical that is. But let me be honest with you. I'm going to be very brutally frank. I think the lady, I don't know her. I wish I had met her before this incident. She sounds very sharp, articulated, and all the rest, confident and all that. But what she's done is really an exercise in self-indictment. Unfortunately, it has collateral damage. It comes with a huge collateral damage, not just for the Commission, but for the nation, in terms of the credibility and integrity of our anti-AIDS team, because it comes with international collaboration,
right?
And that dimension, that all this time. So whether she's telling the truth or not, because look, even if she's telling the truth that she's negative and that she had been negative all along, it's still a loss for us. Now, if she turns out to be positive and what she's doing means that she as a person is lying, it still has a certain damaging effect on our collective image and efforts. We are out there now suffering a certain integrity or credibility deficit relative to what she has done. And that is what makes me a bit really sad for once as a Ghanaian in the context of this discussion. It's so needless. Is it because she has something against the Commission in view of the termination of a contract and whatever went, I suspect there's an element of sour grapes. So whether she's telling the truth or not, the decision to go public with this campaign that she's waging, which has collateral damage, as I said, for all of us, tells me that there might be a certain personal thing. You've had a husband, or is it the former husband?
Yes, the former husband.
Yes, intervening, and it comes with some weight. He still admits his HIV, and they were, I'm sure, having intercourse.
Yes, they did. They have a child together.
Yes. To be honest, I'm finding it very difficult to buy the lady's story.
But the bit about the husband is that the husband was HIV when he met the lady at the HIV place at the Kolebu.
Yes.
And he's saying he also doesn't say that he has any documentary evidence to show that she's actually HIV positive. So almost everybody that's gone along with her have gone under an assumption.
Yeah, but that's where I'm saying that I'm not sure of the procedures as to how that is done.
Right.
Either by the AIDS Commission or through with them in collaboration with others, we ought to have had some documentary evidence. But even that, you being the lawyer, I'm not sure it can be disclosed anyhow by anybody anytime. There's also a procedure there. In any case, bottom line, I think that we are looking very bad in the eyes of the international community. We are all losers in this particular unfolding saga.
Thank you, Kweku. We've just been joined by Eric Amwako Chum. He is first vice chairman of the Trobo constituency of the NPP, and he is a member of the communication team. Good morning and welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good to have you. Now, what do you have to say about Jijo and her, brouhaha with the AIDS Commission? In fact, they invited her to take her through a bit of some drill, and she went there, I suppose, together with her lawyer, and they declined to give any answers to any questions that they had to give. They told them, well, anything we want to say, we have already told the media.
The problem with this situation is the damage it does to public trust and confidence in such schemes. You know, we're talking about situations in which individuals, organizations, and agencies will normally provide various forms of assistance, money and other forms of resources, for purposes of promoting the cause that these individuals are engaged. Now, with this revelation, people begin to wonder whether they can continue to trust, such schemes. But it also raises issues of how they were engaged. Of course, a person comes to say that I am HIV positive. Do we need independent pieces of evidence, quite apart from what the person is telling us orally, to authenticate or confirm the claim that the person is making? We'll also be talking about issues of confidentiality, so that if the person confides, in the commission about his or her HIV status, in moments like this, when the person is denying, can the commission or can it not come out with those pieces of information? She makes certain claims that the commission only took her on the basis, on what she has said, indirectly indicating that the commission didn't do a good job. That's what she seems to be saying.
The commission issued a statement and sought to suggest from the start that at the time they engaged her, for the 2 years that she did the work, or 3 years that she did the work for them, until they terminated her engagement 2 years ago, she was HIV positive.
Yeah, but that's just the same thing. So on what basis? Is it on the basis of what the lady has said?
Right.
But I want to believe that the lady might have been taking certain medication or going through certain medical procedures, and there will obviously be medical records about her status.
Yes.
Question then is, how accessible can those records be? Can the public demand such records in order to contribute to the debate that is going on? But from what the AIDS Commission is saying, it also appears that they have some information, quite apart from what the lady is saying, about her status. But the Commission may be reluctant to let that information out, perhaps because of the ethical issues surrounding patient-doctor relationship, and then such other things. But all in all, I do not think that it speaks well for her.
But if I may add this questioning, do you think that patient-doctor confidentiality, privacy, is still intact? Because and there are videos where initially she came out to say, I am negative.
Okay.
All of us know that story. She had come to say, I am positive.
Positive, yeah.
And that is why I am on this campaign, so that people should stop stigmatizing other people.
Yeah.
So, having said that herself from the start, and all of us having been taken to agree that that's who she was, and she went on this campaign all this while, should that remain a matter of privacy? If the AIDS Commission has it, can they go ahead and publish same?
Let's say that, so we are now talking about maybe confidentiality. So she gives out certain pieces of information to be used for a certain purpose, and that purpose only. So you cannot release the information for purposes other than what the information was given.
What is confidential and private about that information in this time? Because she herself has come out to say, I am positive.
Good, and that is really the question. Let's look at it from this perspective. If what she's saying now poses a danger to the general public, then there will be a compelling basis to go in for the information for us to be able to deal with that.
Okay.
But as it stands now, I do not see what she's saying as being that dangerous, apart from the damage that it does to the public confidence.
Okay.
So that makes the disclosure, a bit more something that we need to think twice.
Okay, we're supposed to just deal briefly with this one and move on. Now, if I may call it Eric.
Yeah.
Yes. What do you say? I suggest, for example, that I don't believe her anymore because by what she's saying now, she's lost my trust. You came first to say you are positive. Now you are coming to say you are negative. And she says she wants to do this so that people will stop stigmatizing her. I say, if I were stigmatizing her, I will not stop until she has shown me proof that she's negative.
Thank you, Samson, and I'd also want to say good morning to all the viewers and then listeners, and then to the co-panelists. I think that definitely there's some kind of integrity deficit there, because I mean, if hitherto she was positive, and then come a few years down the line, she comes out to say that she's negative, and then she's basically sort of prescribing the reasons why she's come out to say that she's now negative, basically, which means that, like you said, it's basically going to reinforce the stigmatization because nobody's going to believe her anymore. But that notwithstanding, I feel that that is a classic example of what is basically wrong with our country in terms of the way institutions run.
Okay.
Because it's endemic with almost all the institutions that we have in this country, whereby you find that simple procedures are not actually followed. Because if there is some kind of documentation as we speak as to exactly what her HIV status is, and which was something that should have been done probably from day one, I'm not sure we would be having this kind of conversation. Do you understand? So I feel that the lady herself and then the commission itself has a lot to answer.
How do we proceed forward from here?
What actually bothers me is the fact that it's dealt a huge blow to our fight against HIV and AIDS in this country, because what happens is that now everything that the commission does would be basically viewed with a pinch of salt, and I'm not sure that we'd want the commission to be bedeviled with issues of integrity, for instance. And if that is the case, what else have they done wrong? We probably have to go in there and look at all the things
there are
that
people
happen.
who are suggesting that at the AIDS Commission, some wrong things may be going on, so that the AIDS Commission may have people or officials who would have intentionally, knowing that Gijo was not positive, but because there was some benefit that they would gain,
basically,
you know, convince her, join us, let's do this, and give it out to the public that you are positive when you are not.
We have to accept the fact that there's some kind of incentives in this whole scheme.
Right.
Now, she was basically an ambassador. I'm sure that she was basically getting some kind
world over.
Exactly, getting some kind of stipend or salary as she
and
went
all of
along.
that was sponsored by the AIDS Commission.
Exactly. Now, my problem with that is that if that's the case, we probably have to dig deeper into the activities of the commission, because if they can allow something as grave as this to happen, then your guess is as good as mine what exactly is happening over there.
All right. So how do you see, just 1 minute, how do you see the Heart to Heart Foundation campaign? How do you see it continue with those who are left? Reverend Azuma and his wife, and I think there's one other person who are on the people living with HIV who gave themselves for this cause.
Well, without a doubt, the commission needs to restore credibility to itself. It needs to. The fight against AIDS is too important, and wherever damage has been done, we need to restore credibility. We need to continue the fight. So they need to find, if any of the persons there are currently tainted in any way, then they need to understand that they need to step aside. If they don't, they should be forced to step aside, so that they need a new broom, a new faces, etc., to restore that credibility.
Okay.
The fight against AIDS must be sacrosanct, as against individual or personal.
At the end of it, we have no demands of the AIDS Commission.
Well, I think the demands is that they have a job to do for the nation, and they need to do whatever it takes to restore credibility in the process, in themselves, going forward.
All right. Thank you very much, Niyama Akofra there. Like I told you, we will be going to the Babayara Sports Stadium, where the NDC is having its National Delegates Congress to elect officers of its executives of its of the party, and to run the party for the next 6 years, next 4 years. A lot of issues have come up. Well, it should be the next 6 years, really, because their tenure will be ending sometime after the next elections. Now, before we get into the NDC and its matters, I want to first of all come to Eric to ask about the NPP issued a statement. You would have read the statement that was issued by Nana Akomia about why it was titled Inconsiderate Mahama should reduce fuel prices because world crude has come down so down, so it ought to be reduced. What was the motivation for that?
Well, I think that it's basically simple. What it is that the government itself, prior to 2008, made several calls for the drastic reduction in fuel prices. I'm sure you're aware of that. And over the period, their record has basically shown that they didn't actually believe in that call. Now, you recall that there's the automatic adjustment formula, which is meant to basically cure some of these mischiefs as and when it happens. Now, the problem is that the price has actually dropped so low from, I think that $103 to below $60 per barrel. Now, the government's own reasons that has been given was the fact that we had issues of forex exchange, and then the fact that that's happened means that the government has basically accrued some debts, and it wants to do that. But then the question is that who's managing the economy?
The debt in respect of under recovery stands at 400 million.
Yeah, but then that's
Ghana cedis. That's a lot.
Yeah, that in itself means that the people of this country are actually paying for the incompetence of the government in terms of the way it has managed the economy. Because from the beginning of the year, we all realized how much the cedi depreciated to the certain level. It was almost 4 cedis to the dollar. So now, if the government is basically passing on this burden to the people of this country, I think that is untenable. Now, government cannot basically hide behind this so-called indebtedness to the various BDCs as a reason for not basically reducing the prices. So in my estimation, the statement is basically the right call. Government should, as a matter of urgency, reduce the price of fuel because, as we speak today, the government in its own omissions and commissions has basically burdened the people of this country to the point where it's becoming almost impossible for average individuals to basically make a living and even have their daily bread. So it's important. And we also realize that in this day where we have issues with our energy sector, for instance, whereby majority of people are actually even using these fuels to basically facilitate the small-scale industries and then the various other commercial activities that they have. I felt that it was imperative that government would actually look at this thing and then, show some kind of considerations to the feelings of these people, that the people of this country, that we need to do something about that. And I'm not sure that that particular argument that we need to give them some more time, basically for them to recover some of the debts that it's accrued to the various BDCs is a good one. I think that this government should basically be forced to, in any way, shape or form, to reduce the price of fuel, to basically ease the burden on the ordinary folks of this country. And of course,
when you say the government should be forced, what are you looking at? The process of achieving that? Government has been clear about this. They have said, look, we are aware that it's dropped from is it $100 to $60, and you are suggesting that we should be paying 13 cedis instead of about 17 cedis. Yes, we are aware of that, but see, we have debt to take care of. Let's recoup a bit and be able to pay. And I just pointed out to you, the Energy Minister Kofi Boah has put on record that under recoveries alone, the debt stands at $400 million. How else do you want government to be able to pay these?
No, Samson, the truth of the matter is that the government, this is basically self-inflicted, right? And like I alluded to earlier, the government has mismanaged the economy. we saw a record depreciation of the cedi. The cedi at a point was the best performing currency in the whole world, right? And that is basically what's accounting to that. But now, the reason why people and other stakeholders will call for a reduction is the fact that government in itself has not sort of covered itself in glory in terms of the way it has doled out money, suspicious, and all these judgment debts and all the things that have gone on in SADA, JIDA, and all that. What it means really is that if government really wants to find money to alleviate the burden of the people of this country, it can. Now, it's a matter of misplaced priorities, and that's exactly what we are looking at. Even if what do you call it? The wastages in our system is even checked, and the fact that we have issues with, I'm sure we will talk about that later, ghost names in our public sector, and then all that. You realize that if government actually takes it upon itself and sees this as a priority, it can do it. And I'm not, in doubt that the call can continue. Various stakeholders would basically, including the various industries in the country, will make sure that government listens to this particular call for the reduction in fuel prices.
Nee, what do you say?
Samson, I think we have a situation where the government cannot have its cake and eat it. You are managing the economy of this country. You could safely continue to manage the economy of this country, how you manage debt, how you do everything else. If you decide to put an automatic adjustment system in place, then that's exactly what it is, an automatic adjustment system with certain criteria. We've seen in this country that automatic adjustment being applied when prices are rising. You cannot then tell the people of this country that, hang on a minute, now that prices are falling, we have debt, you cannot introduce new criteria into the mechanism. The criteria already exist. You have inflicted this on yourself because you could manage the economy, manage debt, etc. without the automatic formula.
I think it is fair not to speak in such terms to suggest that fuel prices have never been reduced when they went down.
No, yes, they reduced 2% recently in the last 2 months or whatever. But overridingly, over 2014, prices are falling in the global market by 45%. In recently, since the price went up in this country, where the crude price was $115, it's come down to 56, 57. That's over 50% drop. You cannot tell the people of this country, we're not going to pass it on because we owe debt. You've abdicated your responsibility as a government to tamper with the automatic adjustment formula because you put it in place. Otherwise, what you're saying to the people of this country is just a hoax. You're running a hoax with the people of this country. How do you suddenly begin to introduce a new criteria, move the goalposts, change the rules because you have debt? It's simply not untenable. The NDC government owes the people of this country at least a 20-30% drop. They owe us. It's not a matter that they can now begin to, and we should start a campaign as people of this country demanding, because you can't run us in this way. And the bottom line, yes, it is true. You have broken the bank. Why are we in a situation we're in? Why are you even in debt? If you've emptied the coffers of this country, you have not been able to manage our resources properly, then let's look at the bigger picture. What do we need to do in this country? And we know that we, as a party, we need to decolonize this economy. We are the party of decolonization. The other two parties, sadly, still remain to be structural adjustment parties, what we call the SAP parties. And this is where SAP leads to. It leads to this situation where you cannot manage your economy. You're waiting for external factors, external dictates to decide how you go forward. You break the bank. You don't have any money in the coffers, which is the bottom line. You run to the IMF, and you continue in that way. You're not able to manage the rich resources of this country to deliver prosperity. And when you can't do that, you put this hoax of a price adjustment formula in place so that you can keep hoodwinking Ghanaians, raising prices, impoverishing them. And when you get the opportunity to reduce it a little bit, you say, oh, we have debt. We have debt. Should we believe it? Should we accept it? We shouldn't. It should not this hoax should not be allowed to stand. And that's exactly what it is. And the last time I was on this program, I was talking about scrapping the automatic formula because it didn't seem to be working. It didn't seem to be delivering the benefits, you know. And it applies to the utility sector as well. You have an automatic system which has been escalating prices, but services are falling. Now you have a situation here where prices are falling, but you have an automatic system which is not responding. So, you know, are we going? This country needs to work. The country needs to work.
Now, I'll come to you, Godwin, and ask whether or not the approach that the two gentlemen seek to want us to look at the automatic adjustment formula as if it's a law without exception, it's a policy without exception, so that even in the face of such, you know, challenges, there should not be a way to maneuver around it.
Then scrap it.
Okay, he said then scrap it. He's repeating that point. But before I do that, I want you to know that people are really concerned about this issue, and they have begun sending in loads of messages as far as the energy situation is concerned. Ilyasu Haruna in Tamale says that the Mahama government has no business selling a gallon of fuel for 10 Ghana cedis when a barrel of crude oil costs less than a box of tomatoes. Common sense has it that the automatic adjustment should have reflected when there was steep, is that what you meant to say, reduction in prices of crude. The government is most insensitive to our plight. Cyril Abanga, Abotisum, is sending from Zwarungu. He says that the Ghana AIDS Commission can just simply put records out there to put an end to the Jijo Mensa charade. That will be totally legal based on the conditions you just raised. But ethics is more than justly legality. It is legal, yes, but according to the GSA, Ghana Health Service, and the Ghana AIDS Commission Code of Ethics, legality comes second at this stage. Bonte Benjamin in Achime Boakwa says, there is no excuse for government's failure to reduce the price of fuel products in the country this year. It even undermines government's own People Matter, You Matter slogan and the I Care For You mantra, truth be told. Musa Ali Kone in WA says the NDC will come out of this election united for victory 2016. I just pray we have incident-free elections. Inusa Hafiz says high gas prices are eating away at consumers' disposable income and could lead to a further economic downturn, especially for those whose livelihood depend on petrol and diesel fuel. Samuel Bryan Boabing in Awoshi says the president, Mr. President, reduce fuel prices now, and that's with an exclamation mark. He says that this is not just a political campaign, rather a viable public cause. The automatic adjustment pricing formula was brought in to lessen the plight of both the consumer and the supplier, whom the regulator. I believe. Then he asks, why then should the regulator give a dumb ear to calls for a reduction in the fuel prices despite evidence of lower international oil prices? How much more does the NPA want to milk from the consuming public? Still on the fuel. Okay, so this Hafiz again. Sorry, I'll move on. That's Spike in Ohio says that it is mind-boggling why government of Ghana is reluctant to reduce fuel prices. Here in the U.S., fuel prices used to be 3.5 per gallon, but it's now 1.99 per gallon. So why can't the government of Ghana emulate this? Ata Imoro in Wellesley says, I thought the automatic price adjustment formula was seen as the way to go by all stakeholders. So why abandon the formula? This is sheer robbery and insensitivity. Is this government for the people? Simon in Waliwali also says the ACE ambassador has dragged the name of our republic, our reputable AIDS Commission, into the mud. Christopher Alamibe in Kasua says, I think the lady needs a psychological help. The lady isn't herself, and perhaps engaging her in a private conversation could help unravel the reasons behind her action. We are too quick to pass judgment on people sometimes, which I think isn't the best. Thank you. So, you're hearing from the people. Some say this is robbery, insensitivity. My question is the law without exception?
It's a fraud.
There is a popular saying that the law is made for man and not man for the law. Simply normally interpreted to mean that we shouldn't use the law to enslave the very people that it's been enacted.
Well, it's not law yet, it's a policy.
Well, yes, I mean, in the form of a law, we can put it that way. But you see, the problem underscores the difficulty that you have when you want to blend market mechanism with state regulation of some of these services. I would want to believe that the automatic adjustment arrangement is intended to ensure efficiency, which is basically built around market forces thinking.
Right.
That as the prices go up, we should allow, it to reflect. If it comes down, it should reflect. But you see, if you have observed over the period, the same population that is asking for the full application of the automatic adjustment process, at some point in time, prevail upon the government to intervene. When prices were going up and then the consumers were having the impact. So, in a situation like that, and if you are a person managing people and managing resources, you find yourself in a pretty difficult situation.
You're saying there's a justification for the current situation not reducing even when the world crude has gone this down?
50%.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that is the situation that people in government will find themselves. And I do not think that it is peculiar to this particular administration. But what that means, though, is that we need to have consensus on some of these issues, because the factors that account for what is happening now are far above our control, and we as a people need to accept it, and then in the light of such reality come to an understanding of how well we can address some of these things. There is a fact of a debt of a certain amount that has to be cleared. What happens eventually if that debt is not dealt with? There is also the fact of the reduction considerably in the prices of fuel. Now, we want that to reflect in our situation.
Because that is supposed to be our legitimate expectation in tandem with the automatic adjustment formula.
Agreed. Now, in the light of these two sets of facts, what do we do? If the debt is not attended to, and then the prices of fuel and related products are reduced, and the debt remains, who suffers eventually? I can appreciate the argument that, but what has brought the debt to where it is now? That is a fair point to raise. But we are talking about solving the problem that exists. For how long can we keep asking that question when the problem exists?
When you look at it in pure contractual terms, that you enter a contract with me, and the contract is fixed at a certain price, and then you tell me that, well, I'm going to breach the contract because something has happened, and because of that, I'm unable to pay you this amount of money.
Don't forget,
you must take the bullet for it.
This is not a contract simplicity. This is a social contract, as it were. And as a social contract, there are issues of efficiency that must make the goods available. But there are also issues of equity that must ensure that the available goods are equitably distributed. So that is the nature of this type of contract. And as I said earlier, you will realize that at some point in time, the very people now asking for the reduction in prices, at a point asked that government intervene to provide some form of subsidies.
Right.
So it creates a certain difficulty to go along that line in arguing. Maybe perhaps we should say that as and when the situation demands, we should all agree that the rules that we have set, we should find acceptable exceptions to them. Otherwise, we will continue to have this problem. I cannot see any system or any government that can strictly adhere to the automatic adjustment system throughout its course in the kind of economy that we operate in Ghana. Because we can't allow market forces to operate without any intervention at some point in time, particularly in areas such as energy and such vital sectors. So we need to really understand our peculiar situation and then come to some understanding, develop, build some consensus as to how to deal with it. That's what I have to say.
Well, there are some who are pointing to a certain point in time when, I think in 2008, when the price of crude hits record high of 147 a barrel, and that's within those times, you know, we didn't enjoy the reduction. We didn't enjoy the equivalent that was supposed to go. So it's the same thing that ought to apply.
You know, I won't claim to have the technical competence to appreciate all the intricacies in this matter. There are people who are experts out there. If I speak on this matter, I'm speaking from the point of how I feel. I buy petrol, I buy diesel, let me put it that way. Others, friends that I have buy petrol, so we can feel it, the impact. It's very, very terrible. Make no mistake about it.
It is.
Considering the fact that we have other constraints in the economy. There's no shedding, prices jumping here and there. I mean, so there's no doubt about the impact, the adverse negative impact. And I have to be very brutally frank too. It isn't the first time we are caught in this situation. In the last 15 or so years, we've been battling with these things. Indeed, if you do a certain trip down memory lane, you would realize that agitation over fuel prices, whether they should go up or come down, and all those things, even predates the Fourth Republic. If you check the Hansard, the difficulties Dr. Liman went through relative to this issue. A champion even, you remember the Middle East War in 1973, suddenly shot up prices, you know, and created chaos for the Kufu regime. You know, so it's a phenomenon that has confronted many governments and regimes, and the question is how we've handled it. Today, my problem is they say we owe the PDCs,
right,
and some of the oil marketing companies, where figures have been thrown around. I'm not sure if we have come to definite figures in terms of auditing and whether the authenticity and how much would be paid. I heard the NPA suggested that by December ending, they would have finished paying the debts. And so next year we should expect some reduction. We've heard this for a long time. People are cynical. Nobody wants to believe this. So the cynicism remains. You know, what is happening to Paul? What is happening to Paul? Is it functional?
I'm not sure this whole story has changed ever since we got to know that it's not really functioning.
Does it not have any impact? We importing a lot of finished products. All sorts of companies have lined up and are bringing in all these finished products. It's quite expensive. If Tor were working, we bring in crude, it refines, at least it lessens the burden in terms of expenditure and the pressures. But what have we done to ourselves relative to Tor? This was an entity that was established somewhere in the early 60s. Of course, was initially privately owned, subsequently became state-owned. What have we done to it?
Its storage facilities across the country, we are told, have been taken over by the private entities.
So what are we doing to ourselves? Are we not part of the problem in terms of the kind of leadership and vision that we, need to address these issues? So we are creating the problems ourselves. We're inflicting the problems on ourselves. And here I'm looking at the leadership, because they are those inflicting the problems anyway. And they turn around and raise the problems, show us how complex the problems are, and suggest that, look, until we have resolved these complex problems, we cannot give you any relief. Look, one day there'll be an explosion out there in terms of social feelings. I'm not talking of a coup d'etat.
All right.
I'll be the first to oppose it. I'm talking of the people going out there and expressing their anger that this cannot continue. So the earlier leadership begins to address itself to this problem. Where is the PURC? It's impotent. It's been rendered almost redundant. And I'm not blaming the individuals there.
I think there's one of their latest announcements that's been out now.
What is it?
That we should brace up for another adjustment
They've said
of
so.
utility prices.
Upwards.
Oh, certainly.
You see, so it's not the persons. Look, it's not the personalities who manage the PURC that have the problem for me. No, they themselves have become victims of this whole design. The fact that we are approaching the thing in a wrong way. We're creating problems for ourselves. How did we come to all these PDCs? How have we gone? What are the factors? Factor in the tall one too. There's something basically wrong with how we are going about things. And in leadership, instead of assuming responsibility and accepting the blame, is trying to spread it. They want to socialize the blame and the responsibility. And at the end of the day, it's the consumer, the ordinary consumer, that suffers. So as I said, I won't sit here and claim to have the technical prescriptions, because I do not have. But I feel that things are getting out of hand relative to this sector of the economy, and we are suffering.
Things are getting out of hand relative to petrol or energy, and as far as Bako is concerned, we're suffering. I think I can testify to that. When you fill up your tank and then
it's no joke,
and you are filling up with so much.
But the issue of toll is very important.
Right.
The issue of toll is absolutely crucial. We have a vision in this country to be able to add value, and governments have been mouthing it for years. Only one government has been able to achieve it, and now what is the status of toll? And privatization is not going to be the solution as this government is proposing. But why are we not able to refine our own crude? Or even if we don't have enough, or the excuses that we've heard that our type of oil is not suitable for our... So make it suitable. Make the refinery that we have, because we have it. Make the refinery that we have, adjust it so that we can refine our own oil.
We need more refineries.
You know, but you cannot continue to fold your arms. You put a system in place for automatic adjustment, and then you don't stick to it, or it doesn't work, or you have a social contract, as our lawyer friend has said,
See, let me read this
contract.
message from my good friend Kojo Jansen, and then it will help you to give. And I want us all to look at briefly what ought to be done immediately, because there appears to be, some groundswell of consensus across the country that the price ought to come down. Even if not, as is being suggested, 13 Ghana cedis. Yeah, then it should go back. It should go down a bit. Even if you take 2 cedis off, it might be better. Now, Kojo says, if you are wondering when fuel prices will come down, please check this. According to the BDCs, the price under recovery debt has actually been brought down from 400 million to 272 million. But that is just the price under recovery for last year. We haven't touched this year's yet. Now, price under recovery is less than a third of the debt the government owes the BDCs. There is also the forex under recovery. That was about $200 million for 2013 alone. If you add last year's debt to this year's, the debt to the BDCs is actually about 1.5 billion cedis. Assuming the cedi does not depreciate by even a peso against the dollar ever again, to clear the total debt, the price will have to remain unreduced for about 10 months. The question is, how long will the MPA maintain prices to defray this debt while fuel prices continue to drop? And why is the special petroleum tax not being used to pay the BDCs? That would clear the debt in about 4 months.
That's an analysis, something that leaves out people. It's an analysis which all the time favors the companies, favors the, just like the crash, the Wall Street crash. It's about people. Why are we running government? It's about people. It's not be about, the debt should remain where it is until we find a solution. But we cannot.
The debt has to be paid.
Well, it has to be paid, but there's a formula in place to pay it. If that formula takes prices down, so be it. The debt must be paid in line with whatever mechanism you put in place. But you cannot keep shifting the post, keep changing the position because you feel that this is opportunity to pay the debt faster, or this is opportunity to do.
So what do you expect must happen immediately?
We should reduce prices, 20%, 30% minimum.
20, 30% minimum.
Because prices have gone down 50%.
Okay, everybody say.
Well, I also back the call that it has to go down, a minimum of 30%.
Minimum of 30?
30%. Okay. And basically because I think that...
You don't agree to 20?
No, at all. I think that government should take responsibility for its actions. Do you understand? And I feel that if we are facing problems, challenges with the economy, which it has alluded to, it has to get the buy-in of the people of this country. And it can do that by, one, telling exactly what is going on, and then also by its own actions. You understand? I know we're going to come there yet. Now, there's a congress going on in Kumasi as we speak, and the contestants themselves are complaining that everybody seems to be throwing cash away. And now, where did they get that money from? Now, this is a legitimate question that the people of this country would want to know. Now, I state categorically that some of these problems that we are facing, especially in this particular sector, is self-inflicted. And government has to take the bull by its horns.
Okay, thank you for that point. Now, Godwin, you have admitted that this affects all other things, fuel prices. The statement that Nana Kumian issued, he said, and this is a part of it, he said, there's no doubt that the cost of living in recent times has been unbearable for the vast majority of Ghanaians. A direct result of the calamitous, you borrowed that from another, I can say that. A direct result of the calamitous fall in the value of the cedi over the last 3 years, and the very high increases in the prices of water, electricity, petrol, and the rate of VAT. Is this not good reason for a reduction in the fuel price, so people can enjoy some bit from the other side?
Those are facts that are not deniable.
Okay.
Yeah. But we are looking beyond just the facts to the solutions to the problems that these facts describe.
Okay.
Of course, what we are having now, a windfall, so to speak, one may say it's accidental, it's not something that has been planned for purposes of paying the debt. And so, Q was trying to suggest that there must have been an arrangement towards paying the debt, so that arrangement should proceed. Why what is happening now should totally benefit the population? Fine, that's an attractive argument to advance. But the reality too is that I think it serves us all well if we can use part of this windfall to address the issue of the debt, and maybe part of it also to address to cushion.
Okay, so you will not
cushion families. You cushion companies.
So you
will
will
cushion
not
families.
You will not endorse or agree to a consideration of a reduction.
Well, there can be some form of reduction so that aspects of the reduction will go to pushing the general public, while aspects, I mean,
he says 20 or 30. He says 30.
Well, I have no percentage because I mean, these are technical matters. So I think that some form of reduction can be acceptable,
but not a reduction that reflects the actual, reduction in the crude price.
Because we may well just be cutting our noses to spite our faces.
Okay,
that way.
But what should happen immediately?
Well, look, it appears
hoping that people don't get onto the streets to do what you were thinking might happen.
No, as for reduction, I think it's non-negotiable.
It's non-negotiable?
Yes, there must be.
Okay.
A certain level of sensitivity must be displayed by those who are in charge of this pricing of petroleum products. There's the need for it.
Okay.
You can't convince anybody that with this huge reduction in the prices globally, there shouldn't be any reduction at all at the pump level. You can't convince anybody. So we show some leadership sensitivity by going for a reduction as the only option that makes sense. The percentage, as I sit here, I really don't have, because I don't understand the technicalities. But I believe there are people who can work it out and we can arrive at a consensus. But I think the automatic, this adjustment formula, it appears dead, perhaps yet to be buried. Yes. We should be careful. So let's see if we are going to reconsider it, or if we are just, because there's something wrong.
Nyama is giving you thumbs up when you said it is dead yet to be buried.
Yes, we haven't buried it.
It's been in the mortuary for a long time.
Sure. So as a nation, I'm asking that we should reconsider that.
Is that formula a certain chief? Some chiefs, you know, they are dead, and the controversy around their burial takes
it
so
shows
long.
our incapacity to deal with this market forces.
Okay, thank you. But again, you admit that this formula, you know, we are not at a consensus yet as to how to allow it to freely operate.
Yeah.
That's why there have been times when fuel prices have gone up, and we are the same people who have urged government not to increase it according to the hike.
Yes, so that's why I said it's something we should reconsider. Look, assuming by next year prices start shooting to the skies, what is government going to say? That, oh, now I've decided to resurrect the adjustment formula, automatic. There is the deficit, the integrity deficit that is coming with this whole formula is what is making it tricky. I think it's leadership that should be blamed.
Okay. Amache Ansaya Boa says, Samson, how much did government hedge our crude? And it's an important question to him. If government did hedge at, let's say, $100, then they are not benefiting from the drastic reduction in the prices on the world market. Well, government should be explaining that to us, really. Thank you very much for your messages. We're taking a quick break here. We'll return and we do a sneak peek into what is going on in Baba Yara, and then we'll move on to why the EU is withholding as much as $135 million of budget support from us, because allegedly they're afraid that it will be part of a state-sponsored payroll fraud. We'll be right back. Let's get to the phone lines and speak to Senyor Hosi. He is the CEO of the BDCs, bulk distributors companies. Senor, good morning and welcome to Newsfile.
Yeah, good morning, Samson, and good morning to your panelists.
Great. Now, I want to see if you can bring us some very special insight into the discussion that we are having, which is based on the public outcry for a reduction in fuel prices to reflect what is happening on the world market. Why can't we have a reduction in Ghana? Can you answer that?
Well, I can identify very much with the public. I'm also a consumer of it. I pay petrol at the pump, so I identify perfectly with the situation that we are faced with. But there's a real bigger picture to this entire debate. The abandoning of the automatic adjustment formula, I mean, it started somewhere in 2009. It took a big dive, into 2011. 2013 was good. 2014 has not been good. And government's debt, as far as BDCs are concerned, have increased, and it's having a negative impact on funding for the industry. If government has to ensure BDCs will still supply products and we don't have shortages as we did in June, then we need to be fundable. And it's only one way to do that. We have to get. I do not see government getting us paid in any alternative way as of now, and I think it's no news that the government has actually been faced with some fiscal challenges on the revenue side and definitely on the deficit side. We need to get paid. Our job is just to deliver. If we can't get our funding right, we are going to get back to the situation that we were in June. It's not a situation I want to see. When we were having prices much lower at the pump than we actually had to pay, I didn't see much cry for the automatic adjustment program. So I think that we all need to be honest about this whole thing about subsidy and about automatic adjustment and all that. If we really want it as a people, then let's be ready to live by it. We don't take it when it favors us and don't want to take it when it doesn't. If we are not living by it, then we should use the same mechanism to ensure that the system is fundable.
Okay, so when you say
one correction here,
when you say
somebody said we're cushioning companies, it's very wrong. You are not cushioning us. Paying this money through this over recovery doesn't make us profitable by a single cent. It just makes us become fundable so we can still make our product available on the market. And Tor is a fantastic asset that we need to grow or get functional. But as we speak, when Tor produces, it's much costly than having products imported because the engineering that has to go on in Tor, the investment that has to go on in Tor, has not been forthcoming in a long, long while. And that is why you have Tor being dysfunctional. But the fact that we intervened in prices many times, subsidies left, right, center, and we just got Tor into the situation that you have BDCs today. You can't find an alternative to BDCs now because Tor became somewhat an alternative to Tor. Okay. Now you're looking for an alternative to BDC when Tor itself is up down. It's not a functional option.
Okay,
I'd love to see Tor back.
Senor, what I have discovered is that you have addressed issues that you really intended and planned to address. My question is straightforward. Yes or no? Can we have a reduction in fuel prices in Ghana to reflect the world crude prices?
That is very possible. It can happen tomorrow morning. There's only one implication to that. If BDCs through the mechanism cannot get paid, banks will pull back funding and get back to the situation in June. So it's a choice we have to make. We are faced with about 1.5 billion in debt. It's not possible to pay that in December. If you want to add the special petroleum tax to the over-recoveries we have today, yes, in France, you can clear the 2013 position and we can start discussing, 2014. But if not, and we want to just use the over-recoveries today, it's going to take us 10 months. But if government is going to be in a position to raise funding from any other source, which is still going to be our own taxes anyway, then that's fine. We are willing
so as distributors, all you are concerned is if government wants to implement this automatic adjustment formula fully, all you are concerned is that you ought to be paid when you have to be paid. That's all you're concerned about.
We ought to be paid when we have to be paid. And if
but your fear
now, when prices go up,
right,
we must be ready to live by it.
Yes.
If government wants to intervene, there's one nice option.
Okay.
You can reduce your taxes.
But
you can withdraw taxes, and you can use that as a moderating factor in pricing. But today,
your fear is that, or should I put it the other way? This way, you think, is the surest way by which government can continue to pay you so that you deliver the oil. Is that it?
That's a statement of fact. 1.5 billion. Look in the budget. There's only 50 million cedis for subsidies. How are we ever going to get paid? How are the banks going to be able to keep sustaining funding to this sector? It's not practical.
All right.
This is the surest way that government can pay us.
Okay.
And I can only bet on what is practical, not what is...
Just hold on. I've got two questions from you. Niama Konfra, his question, I think, boils down to the fact that you're seeking the interest of your members. That's all about it.
Yes.
Ask him. No, hold on. He's asking the question.
The question is, why can't we even share the benefits? After all, nobody's saying there should be a 50%. There's a 50% reduction in crude prices. Yes. Why can't we share it? Why does the government wish to use the whole of the benefits to pay off company debt? Why can't the families be cushioned partly and perhaps some of the debt also paid?
Let me give you some numbers. From the time, for now, at today's window, we have about 140 million cedis going to be accruing to the special petroleum tax in a month. And you have about just 100 million cedis that will accrue to BDCs as at now, at this current rate, up about like 95 million actually. You don't see that 50% accessible because a part of that 50% has been taken away by the special petroleum tax. So it's not that whole 50% reduction that's available to us. Like I just gave you numbers. Had it not been the special petroleum tax, we would have had that much. And yes, we can be talking about 50%. So when prices moved down and they introduced the taxes, they didn't really increase the price at the pump, meaning that they took a part of the reduction and took it back in the form of tax, which goes into the consolidated fund.
Okay, hold on. Very final question. Okay, hold on. Listen to Kwekubako.
react to
Okay.
it. You know, Tor is not a functional option today, we are being told. Now, who caused
Pardon?
Tor is not a functional option today. Who caused up?
Let me finish.
Wait. Just listen carefully. He's making a comment.
As far as I'm concerned, that has nothing to do with the BDCs and their responsibilities. This leadership responsibility. Tor has been here for years. We knew its capacity, we knew the level of inefficiencies and all the rest. It requires a certain leadership with vision to have handled that aspect. So the point that it will be costly to produce is not the business of the BDCs.
Okay.
I am looking at those we have elected over the period, those who have entrusted responsibility of managing Tor over the period, and the kind of vision and capacity they brought to bear on that. And the fact that if we had seen ahead and had re-engineered Tor and given it that requisite capacity and the level of efficiency, it could still be contributing. Nobody is saying PDCs would then be totally out. We can't have one structure.
Right.
Nobody is saying. So that question of it is today not a functional option. I'm saying it is to be blamable on leadership.
Okay.
Now, my last point.
Okay.
Reduction of prices. I think, again, that is not the business of PDCs. It's not their primary business. They want their money paid to them. Fair deal. The people of this country are also suffering the adverse impact of fuel prices going up and are seeing fuel prices up there going down, but are not seeing the consumer rate equivalent.
Rate, yeah.
Yes. So that, again, has absolutely nothing. You see, I think that he's selling his case. I see an extension between they selling their case, which is legitimate, and which I have absolutely nothing to do against, distinct from what we are struggling with here.
But he's making the point that if you take this away and you leave government to find the money to give them when they ought to be giving, it is highly probable that they may withdraw their service at a point because government may not be able to pay them.
And do
with
their
this
business
sustained, reliable source of income, they are sure that the money is being paid and they can go on to deliver.
My brother, we have enough money in this country.
Okay.
Some
Thank
goes
you,
to waste.
Thank
anyway.
you,
so it is not their business.
Yes.
It's government business. Leadership business.
Brief comment to wrap up so that you can leave us.
Our ultimate interest is in delivering our service to the economy and to consumers. We need to look for practical and functional solutions. I did not see any space in the budget to have us paid, even on the assumption that the SPT, which is the Special Petroleum Tax, will be revenue accruing to government. There's very little in the budget to suggest that we'll be paid out of that system. If Ghanaians really want to have their products, let's be practical. Government has very little control and space in petroleum. It is not sustainable. We have various politicians promise us from time to time, and we've had all these things coming back to us. It happened under Jerry Rawlings. It happened under Kufuor. We've got a thought that levy ended up with something.
Okay, thank you.
It's going to happen again.
Thank you, Senor.
We might as well
Thank you, Senor. Senor is the CEO
Talk.
of the Ghana Chamber of Bulk Oil Distribution Companies.